forum, I suppose. It's going to be a little bit different to what we're used to. It's not going to be your traditional descriptive sports science-y type presentation. As the title suggests, the four of us are going to reflect on our time working in Asia, considering that for a long time now Greg's had the relationship with Teikyo, the relationship with Beijing University has been established, and I suppose if and when the time comes for our colleagues to go to Teikyo or to go to Beijing, this is kind of us sharing what we've done, so you kind of know what to expect. I think kind of giving you that experience through our lens, so when you go, you're not just chucked straight into the deep end and kind of just overwhelmed by the size or the magnitude of some of the cities that we are working in and around. So and we've got TJ again, as you know. TJ came with us on our last trip. There's the possibility that TJ could be going back very, very soon. So we're all going to, like I said, reflect on our time and share our experiences, really. Okay, cool.
So this is, a bit of a broad or conceptual slide really, but I think Marion spoke about it really well. The reason behind this presentation isn't just to tell you what we've been up to, but sport is a global thing. We're sort of in the business of sport, but you only play sport or experience sport in the context of the culture you're from. So we're going to start off chatting a bit about, I guess, just the differences in culture between China, Japan and New Zealand, particularly the age of those cultures, and then get into what we did, what we've seen, and see how it goes. So China is really old. It's in terms of people just knocking about that area, sort of 15,000 years people have inhabited that area. Japan's slightly less, more around the 12,000 year mark, and they sort of moved across from China. China have had writing or written history for around about 4,000 years, so they're pretty good at documenting things, and you sort of experience that when you're around the cultures. I can't really speak for Japan, but then we've also got Britain and South Africa, the TJ bit from South Africa's comparisons. And New Zealand, by contrast, is just short of 170 years old. So in terms of the depth of culture, it's pretty shallow in comparison to some of these ancient civilizations. And China in particular is sort of the last ancient civilization. Unlike Egyptians or people like that, they've not sort of gone to pot. They've hung around a bit. And hopefully New Zealand will do the same, I think.
So this particular slide is we're comparing the sizes of, we're speaking about the sizes of each of these cities. So when we were putting this slide together, Auckland doesn't even feature on the top 100 cities in the world by size or by population. The greater Tokyo area, so the Kanto area, is around about a similar size to the greater Auckland area. But they've got 42 million people. And that, I know some of us, I hate driving. 1.5 million, 2 million tops. I think 20 times that in the greater Tokyo area. What's London?
London is around about 8 million, just within sort of central London, and then Beijing, just within central Beijing, still had 23 million. And I imagine if you expanded it out, sort of as we did a bit with Tokyo, that'd be even more. But having sat in a couple of cars in Beijing, it's not a pleasant experience being on the roads. It's sort of a cross between, I described it as like an Italian queue mixed with rugby league. So lack of order and contact seems to be encouraged. So it's not, you just sort of shut your eyes and hope for the best. Very little English spoken as well by taxi drivers, so it's easier just to walk around the place.
Something you have to also remember, I found out a couple of weeks ago about China. We know that their population is about 1.3 billion, but that's actually registered people. So in China they've had the one-child policy for a few years now, but that's one registered child. So families still keep having babies, they just don't register the child. So that child doesn't go to school, doesn't get an education, but those families and those younger children will work and make money to ensure that the child, that the oldest one, is educated, goes on, makes money for them, and sends it back to them later on in life. So speaking with a guy a couple of weeks ago, they were saying that the population of China is closer to 3 billion than it is at 1.2, 1.3.
I think I can believe that. Yeah, there's a lot of bodies around wherever you are. It's a bit of an intimidating thing. Yeah, like a scrub. Over to you. Just tell us what you told us yesterday. About structure and.
So I mean, the culture that I'm most familiar with is the Japanese culture, and so my experience in Japan has been over the course of 9 years, and working for 9 years in Japan, and for the last 7 at Teikyo University. So so my journey around through Teikyo University has enabled me to understand a whole lot of stuff about Japanese culture, because my boss is a psychologist and by trade, and so therefore he thinks and he talks to me a lot in very stilted, broken English. And so I understand the combination of just Japanese English, English, I think I call it. So, which consists of about 100 English words that he's got, and then when it gets really complex, the translator comes in and we have a proper conversation. But I think some of the things that underpin Japanese culture are important to understand. And one of those things, the picture of the Shodan monks, is, and it's already been spoken about, is that the Japanese came from China, as I understand, and like the little cousin sort of that lives across the world. And a lot of the traditions have flowed across language and other constructs. One of the things that exists, I think, is the work ethic that's embedded in the Japanese. And apparently the Shodan monks, as I understand it, have this work ethic where they're up early, they do lots of work, they have routine, they're structured, everything is about order, and there's lots of it, and they go to bed, and they're asleep for X amount of time, they wake up and they start again. And if you think about the Japanese culture that I know, that's how it's structured. Is that everything is got a time allotment, you get up at certain times, you've got certain tasks to do, you go and do it, you get it done, you don't question, you just get it done, and that's how it's structured. So that's the sort of underpinning, I guess, philosophy that sits in the Japanese culture, and I see it in rugby. Is that sometimes with the rugby you've got to turn the lights off at night to keep the players off the field, because they will just keep training. And you see it also in parts of the stuff that when we're in the office, and they see it, been told stories and seen it in other places where like everyone will be working at about 30% capacity waiting for the boss to go home. As soon as the boss goes home, everyone goes home. But up until that time, everyone just keeps working because they think they're expected to work. And that's translated to a rugby context where these people come from. But there's some other things, that other constructs that are inside the Japanese culture that are really interesting, that they're tied up in the way they think. So I'm told that it's a real influence on the society is greatly influenced by the emperor at that time. And so this story was told to me by my boss. He said there was the emperor that was born, that ruled Japan when he was a young man growing up, was the guy called in English name Showa. And Showa was the hierarchy of senpai and kohai, and you don't question what you've been told by your senpai. You just do what you're told, and you get on with life, and you've just got structure. And then he passed, and then there's another one called Heisei, Showa and Heisei. Heisei came into the world. Heisei then started to talk about you need to ask questions, you need to make sense of it. You run this to the elephant. And Heisei was from new generation, and Heisei encouraged everyone to ask questions. So they had a generation of young people who had, in their home was okay to question, and they needed to make sense of the world they were in, and therefore they thought differently. And if you think about how Japan's prospered, it's been in this in this period where they've asked questions. And so what he figured out, he was pretty smart. My boss is, well, he was born in this do as you're told, but his athletes were born in the ask questions, where a lot of the coaches told their athletes what to do, didn't make sense for them, their rugby teams didn't succeed. He took himself in the new generation and started to make himself, he changed himself, so he enabled the thinking to go on. So he sort of changed. But the construct of Japan was that you would do what you're told, when you're told to do it, and it's ruled by you. So, but this guy, because he was able to, I think better, more clearly about the construct he was in than his opposition coaches, he enabled his team to get a competitive advantage, which has been very successful. I think that's one of the reasons. But I've also enjoyed my time up there is because he's been open to new ideas and information, and he's always asking how to improve rather than just pretending he knows what's going on. So that's been the big difference of inputs. It's been really important. I think the other sort of construct there, sort of briefly mentioned, was the senpai kohai stuff. So, you know, if your elder tells you what to do, you do it. You know, and that I've seen that translate itself into in the businesses that I've worked with. So I've worked for Tokyo Gas there, which is a gas company. I've worked for Toshiba, which is a range of things. I've worked for Teikyo. Every company had taken the concept of the senpai kohai differently, and you could see it playing itself out differently. The best probably representation is some of the teams that we play against. There's a team called Waseda out there. And Waseda is an old traditional team, and it's all Japanese. It doesn't bring foreigners in, doesn't bring foreign coaches in, doesn't do anything that's not Japanese. They were traditionally strong. They had this huge old boy network. When we played them, there's 60,000 people there supporting them. They've just sort of dropped off. Well, everyone's opened their mind up to different ways and they've improved. At that university, the fourth years don't talk to the first years. The first years clean all the toilets, and the fourth years get all the cruisy jobs, and then the bosses tell the fourth years what to do in their day. Information flows. And our team, the first years and the fourth years are the same. They're cleaning the same toilets. They're sweeping the same field on game day. It's a flat structure. The boss sits in a room like this. You wouldn't even know who's the boss, other than his desk is slightly larger than everyone else's, and he's the same as everyone else. You know? So it's different. It's interpreted different. But that interpretation of kohai senpai is different per organisation, but it's present. So I guess that's, for me, the things that flow out of, that help me make sense of Japan are probably those three big chunks. One, around the work ethic. Two is around how the societal norms are constructed out of the emperors and how they're told to think. And then three, in terms of how they interact with each other, it really depends on the interpretation of the kohai senpai construct and how they make sense of that and whatever the context is.
Anything you want to add? Or do you want to just look quick? Yep. Right then, there's just a couple of pictures from my time in Beijing. I went and delivered a couple of lectures, but both these pictures here are on campus. This is, I think, from the translation, this is Chairman Mao, who also founded Beijing Sports University. There's about 16,000 students there, and there's all studying sports science in some guys. So a couple of these are, I say a couple, probably a couple of thousand of these, sort of postgrad, and then a very thin layer of PhD students on top. And they also just have full-time athlete students. So around about 1,000 to 1,500 people are there just to be athletes. So they have quite an interesting life. They just rock up, they train, and that's pretty much it. But they get results, and that's what this top picture's all about. This is part of their Walk of Champions. So inset into this walk are people's footprints, handprints, whatever. And everyone on this walk, which is pretty much every alternate tile, has won a world or Olympic title. Not a medal, a title. It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
It goes through this little forest, this little area, and what's amazing about those sports, if you're into the nation, they will go for miles ahead. You have to win something, and it goes for ages. There's like a 150-meter walk of champions, and the tiles are only this big. There's 150 meters of champions.
Yeah. and it's a real impressive campus. There's so many specialist buildings. Every sport that they do seems to have its own building and not just a small building. You're talking like the swimming building is an Olympic swimming pool. The gymnasium is a full basketball court. We've got 3 athletics tracks for no real reason. Tried to sort of get that out of them. We got as far as, in broken English, well, there's one that the community has access to, there's one that athletes have access to, and that still left us one spare for something. So it's a pretty interesting spot. But yeah, real sort of community feel about the place. There's staff dining, and that sort of feeds into guest dining as well. Quite a nice restaurant. There are 3 hotels on site, so it's used quite a lot internationally. The hotel I stayed in was just ridiculous. Downstairs was full of sort of priceless ancient art. You opened a cupboard accidentally one day, and there was sort of 10 like Van Gogh paintings in there, just knocking about. And all the students eat together, and it's a real interesting experience. I was fortunate enough to be there for graduation, and that was pretty crazy all week as well. So just seeing so many people there enjoying and celebrating what they've achieved was quite cool. But yeah, fascinating place, but they don't do much differently from us. We've got a lot of kit, we've got a lot of stuff, but you still rock up to your lectures, you're still taught in a very similar way, it seems. Just on a grander scale. And yeah, before I went, Greg, so we had a bit of a briefing, I guess, and we talked a bit about the Chinese way, and this is like build it big, build it strong, build it to last. And this is the Summer Palace. This was a reasonable walk from the university, but this is just part of the palace. It covers an enormous area. I can't quite remember how big it is, but this is just a glimpse of what's there. This was all built sort of in the 1700s up to about the 1900s, so quite a long period that rulers, or particularly rulers' wives, like to add to. And they just go hang out there for summer. It does exactly what it says on the tin. And everything's sort of hand carved, hand painted, and it just really reinforces, I think, when you're part of a large population, that you're contributing to something all the time. And maybe that little bit of anonymity can be quite a powerful thing, because you contribute to a larger picture all the time.
It's one of the things too, when I was there with Robbie, you might see Robbie floating around in Tech, little Robbie Shin. So in our day off, he took me to the Forbidden City, which is Tiananmen Square, which has got the big, where you see where all their stuff went down when someone stopped the tank. And in fact, you don't talk about that. He told me to stop talking about it because they're like looking around and don't talk about it. So I didn't talk about it again. But that's where it was meant to the thing. It's an enormous place, and it's got this like a set of concentric sort of barriers around the Forbidden City to a core. And that's just enormous. And you've never, like, I was blown away by the scale of everything in China. I was expecting Japan. So I'm used to everything on top of each other. It wasn't like that. It was just so spread out and so big. And I've just never experienced it. Just a sense of vastness and space and everything is enormous. This Forbidden City stuff that I was showing. The reason he took me there is he needed to understand that they build things in China, build them properly, and they build them forever. He said, if you take that concept and you take it to what we're going to do, he said, then you're not in a rush to get this right. He said, just get it right and it will happen. He said, so it was a pretty important lesson at the time, but I've got bad ankles as it was. I've got some sore shanks by the time I left the Forbidden City. I tell you, I limped all the way to the end, and once you empty, you can't go back. You've just got to keep going until that way. So we got to halfway on the long way to go.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's huge.
Absolutely massive.
Japan's similar. They've got similar structures in the outskirts of the city. Temples just scattered around the greater Tokyo City area. Some of the ones in and around it aren't as big as that, but similar concept. They're thousands of years old. They're built to last. And Russ was talking about how this particular palace was a summer palace. A similar concept in Japan. They have certain palaces that they would visit, live in at certain times of the year. If you think about us in the classic Kiwi batch, that's the Chinese version. So, but like Greg has spoken about, just the enormity of what they're doing or what they have done, the size. But when you think about it, they've got that many people and they've had that many people for a civilization that has been going for 15,000 years. That concept, how we said, build it well, build it to last. Obviously, they built something well.
Yeah. I think, my next couple of pictures should show that bit as well. These are a couple of their labs, so they have a massive sort of teaching building, which is, I guess, the equivalent of what we're in at the moment. That's where all the students sort of hang out. And this is in the athlete building. So this is downstairs. This track is about 100 metres long. You can see they've got their timing gates there. And interspersed along this, roughly every sort of 5 to 10 metres of force plates just built into the floor. And then down this end, you've got full high jump area, probably the size of this, with your full Vicon system down there. And that's just one floor. We then went up a couple of levels onto the altitude floor. This is one of their altitude labs. This can go up to around about 4,500 metres. And you can see we've got a weight training area there. There's a couple of bikes here. We've got the race walkers on the treadmills there. And people doing a bit of conditioning too. So they've got, about 3 of these labs. And on the other side of the corridor, they've got altitude bedrooms. They've got about 14 of those. But they've had this stuff for a long time. Like, you took me into the generator room and it didn't look like it was too well held together, to be honest. Like, you could tell it had been there a while. But I think it just shows, again, reinforces that idea of, right, we're going to embrace something. We're going to go for this, invest in it, build it big, and get the most use out of it. So all of these guys in this building are just full-time athletes. That's what you need to be to get access to this building. Teaching building's enormous as well. Some real cool, real interesting labs there. And when we spoke to them about doing student exchanges and things, that's where we can really push our students, to do some mouse studies, to do some brain stuff. And in terms of the scale of things, I spoke to one of their professors, and he's planning on doing a massive VO2 max study this year, and he'll test about 2,000 people over the course of this year, just because he feels that's a good number. There was no real statistical reason behind this or any reason, but I'm pretty sure he'll get that one accepted.
This is just a bit of a snapshot of Teikyo University campus. The top picture there, so that there's probably not as clear as what we'd hoped it would be, but that's a 3G lacrosse pitch right in the middle of the campus. It's probably, I would say, maybe 60 or 70 by 70 squares. And every morning, the rugby team, so in the rugby team there are about 150 players in their system. Every morning they go to breakfast and they all eat together. The rugby players eat together, have breakfast, lunch and dinner 6 days a week with each other. But they walk past this particular pitch at about 7:30 breakfast is. And we walk past every morning and there are a couple of lacrosse teams that have been there for about an hour. Just training, doing their thing. Now, the rugby field that the rugby club utilise is a 3G pitch. My last trip there, I looked at the pitch; had been changed. It was a new one. So the last time I was there, they said, "Oh, we're due for a new one," and a new 3G pitch would probably be 1.2 million. And apparently they change it every 8 to 10 years. They change the pitch. And so there's the rugby one. There's this one. TJ did a bit of training down on their athletics track, and there's a full soccer pitch on the inside of that, which is a 3G pitch.
The gridiron 3G.
Yeah, and they've got a gridiron setup and they're revamping that one at the moment. And so they've got just all these facilities for their athletes, and different to Beijing University, where these athletes are actually student athletes, but they're well resourced, and then they've got fairly good facilities. And this building here, one of the newer buildings, TJ and I went for a walk through that. I was taken for a tour and that, and oh my god, it was, as a teaching space, I was envious of what they had, in terms of just the sheer size and what they could accomplish in that space. And I asked the staff member that took us around, that they showed us around, why they built it. Oh, because we needed a new building. No real purpose, but just because they needed a new building. And this particular university, and Greg will correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a privately owned university, so not too much state funding. And I think Teikyo University has three campuses. Privately owned.
Three in Tokyo.
Three in Tokyo.
So there's campuses all around the world too. So they've got, a couple of years ago we went to the trip, if you remember, with Teikyo to England. They played Cambridge University in Durham up there. And inside Durham University they've got a campus. They've got a high school in London as well. And other campuses in other parts of the world and in the States as well. So they profess to be, well, they want to be international university. So their websites in English. Internationalization is very important.
And then this is just a snapshot of the population we're working with, really. Some of the boys, so that's up on the rugby pitch. This wasn't the last trip that TJ and I did. This was a snapshot from the one last year. And as with any research, you're going to be, your participants need to be well informed, and there's the participant information sheet, and that's them filling out our WinTech Park Hughes and our form. And the guy in the red shirt, his English is outstanding.
Universities in Japan are clear in terms of their intellect. Ours is not a smart one. We've always had trouble with this. Did that translate? It was translated.
So it was translated. But any questions that they asked that the boys had about the study were directed to Mr. Humer, the guy there. But Greg said that, rugby heads are rugby heads, and wherever you go in the world, they're not the smartest folks around.
You can tell they're taking the mickey out of the some of the dumb ones.
And then, like I said, just more snaps of our gear getting used. Okay, so we took our time, those are our timing lights. We were using our gear over there. So that was 10, 20, 40 metre sprint test. Here's our LBT there, getting used for bench throw. And a couple of videos. So there's some videos that TJ and I, so this particular one TJ took. Now, to give you some context, this is the last training before the A team went off to play their game. And so there are 150 players in this system. And the A team, they were playing away. So we just go somewhere, and this is the last active training for the A team. So they're all the ones in the green jerseys.
Oh wow!
And what they're doing, now you can't really hear because the sound is set up.
Really cheering you on as they go.
The other 130 players are just geeing them up for tackle back training.
That's part of Japanese thing I don't understand. They shout it, find someone's name and they just shout it. I don't get it. You join them, just to take the fun out of it. That's cool.
So there are a couple of boys in that particular team. This one they can tackle here. As a third-year student, he debuted for the Japan national team. He's in his fourth year now. So these boys are they're at a high level. And so part of Japanese tradition is using salt as a cleanser and to purify things and get rid of bad spirits and all that kind of stuff. Now, before every game of from what I understand, that the 18 play before they go away, head coach, was referred to him as his boss. His official title is Kamtoku, which means head coach. He lays all 23 jerseys out on the table and goes through a mini ceremony of blessing the jerseys with salt. And as they're doing this, once that's done, all the players from 1 to 23 will come up and he will present their jerseys to them. The captain will be last. He'll get his last. The captain will say a speech to the collective about how they're going. They're going to perform. They're going to uphold the integrity of their institution, of their team, of their system. Very, very polite traditional Japanese, in a polite traditional Japanese manner. Then following that, and I'm not sure if we've got it, that the players will grab the salt and rub it on each other, as part of that process. And Greg was saying to us yesterday that the players even know if someone's got a sore shoulder, they will focus on a particular player's injuries or part that they're niggling, because that salt is that cleanser. And it's about cleansing their player and their teammate ready for the battle that's about to occur. So this here is a bit of footage of that process. We couldn't get too close because we weren't too sure how close we were allowed to get with a GoPro. But give it. And do you want to add to your experience? Because this, for TJ, I'd seen it before. TJ said, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, I think just the passion they show was quite interesting. Just going back to the culture and how they do things. I don't know. At these trainings, what they had 30-year student, or I don't know what year they were, but there was all these girls, and what their job was to run water for the boys. That's just what they did. So they'd be there an hour before training, get the waters ready, run the ice baths, get all that ready, and then the boys would be there. They run every time there's a water break, a 30-second water break. There's a project. They run waters to the boys to make sure the water bottles are full. When training's finished, they take everything away. They're down in the office doing the computer, the videos. They'll be there for 2 hours after training. They're doing that every single day. They're there on game days doing that, and they're there on the days off. So they'll be there on Sundays, the day after games, running waters to boys doing an easy session. They're there in the computers 7 days a week. It's just what they do. And so I think that's just part of their culture. They've got the head coach. He's sort of wanting that to happen, so they do it. No complaints, no advice. That's just what they do. And then afterwards, they'll get changed in their little changing room, and then go off to class and go home. That's just their culture.
Trainings themselves will go for about 4 hours. And so this is what blew our minds, was that they would start training by doing a core session. So they would fatigue their core before training. We know obviously our practice is you need your core for training, so we do that later. That's what they do. And on the left hand side you can see that fence. So that fence goes right around the outside of the field. And that little gateway there, every person that walks through that will stand, face the field, bow their heads in respect to the arena that they're walking into. And when you leave, turn, face the field and bow again. And as part of that, those societal norms and those traditions that we were speaking about, it's what you do, it's how they've done it, they've taught us since they were kids, and it's a respect thing, obviously. And then also, Teikyo was talking about the allied staff and the students that don't play rugby. They're all part of they're just a part of this big massive wheel. They're a cog in the wheel, and they know that they have to do their job. If they don't do their job, the wheel doesn't spin.
Follows up from what you just said.
And
thing here that they do here, they do that often. The boss is smart enough to realise that he's got 150 people, he's got players, he's got athletes, and that he's got a staff of about 50, and he's got a fan base of about 20,000. And so he's got a please them. So here's this thing about, and this is I guess one of the things I guess for me to sum up on this Japanese experience is about the collectivism that sits inside this culture, that they are all the same, that they do this together, that they are united in what they do. So whilst only 23 players can go out and represent Teikyo with the jersey that only the 23 wear, every week they actually representing everyone. So what they've just said is 1, 2, 3 link, and it links them all. And so they even have a teddy bear that's number 24 that all fans get. So everyone's got a number 24 jersey. It used to be number 23, then the rules changed and they had to get rid of 22. But everyone's the same. Everyone outside that 23 is the same. And then after that talk there, the boss will go over to the players will go over to each other. They're playing and they'll rub their salt on it and everything else. The boss will go and talk to the other players and tell them how important they are. He'll bring all the staff back in. Everyone that's on that 23 will go and address them, just like he's addressed the team. He'll tell them how important they are. And there's lots of little things that sit along his environment that tells each person that they're an important part of that organisation. But it's, for me, I've got the privilege of spending 10 years at Fiji playing rugby in Fiji. Got the opportunity to be with Samoa, live in a society that's got multicultural, multi-Pacifica. And the Asians, in my experience, the Japanese, are so much the same as Pacific Island culture. It is so much the same. It's unbelievable. If we are to divide, in my opinion, there's Western culture inside this world, and then there's just about everything else. I've seen everything else, and they're so Pacific Island in their thinking around family, they're thinking their value system, even some of the belief system that sits underneath about where things come from, how things were evolved, and the beginning of stuff. It's kind of has a similar blend to it. And if we are to do more work up there, I think the biggest thing that we can take away from my opinion, is the fact that these people are to be genuinely respected, and we sit back there not as the expert, but we go there to contribute something, and we don't offer our piece until we ask to offer our piece. So we get invited there, we go there, and we work with them. This is their project. We just offer, it's our service. We get asked for an opinion, we give it. We don't leave, we don't assume they don't know, we don't do anything like that, we just sit back and we do what we're invited to do. And as we're invited to step forward, we'll step further forward, until in the end we'll probably help them lead this stuff, but at the moment we're taking steps towards a partnership, and as trust is built, we'll step up the staircase and we'll eventually get to a point where we're good partners. And that's really important to understand. And the lessons I've learned in China is not only this, that BSU that we went to, but also Beijing University, which is where we're doing the snow hours. Partnerships is important, collaboration is important, trust is important, eating together is important, sitting down together is important, respecting each other is important. And when all those things are achieved, then you can do some business. It's the same for us in these things.
Or just back to, that's one of the water girls there, one over there. They're all fitted out of their fancy Under Armour gears as well. So it's just like you were saying that they're a link. They're just part of the team as the boys who just got their playing jerseys. They got the same gears. Pretty sure that girl over there, she's the one that she was the referee. The one over there. And so the head coach sees that he thinks she's ready to, ref the game. And so on the Saturday, she refed the second half of one of the games just because the coach said, "You're ready. I want you to ref the game." So that's just, he made the call and she did it. So again, it's just that link and how they are together. That's one thing that I got from it was super pretty cool.
What about your experience? The experience that TJ had.
Oh, I just enjoyed it. It was not what I expected it. The city itself was real clean, not something that I think Japan would be like. People were real friendly, real open to us, accepting towards us. It was challenging communicating with them, but then I also enjoyed speaking my dumb done down English.
English.
Yeah. And just, sitting at dinner with the boys and breakfast with the boys, just them wanting to learn a bit more about us and how we do things over here. They are open to that. It's just tough to communicate with them. I'll say something and then think he's understanding, and then he's speaking something back to me, and I think I'm understanding, but we're both just, yeah. And ending up just smiling and nodding. That's all. Smiling and nodding. But food's good. It was an awesome experience. I think coming back, for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks being back, I've learned how to present things back to them. So we were there practically getting the experience, but then you've got to learn how to present stuff back to them that they can understand. So as a practitioner, you get the practical experience, the knowledge of how to analyse things, present it back to them so that they can make improvements. And I think that's been quite helpful to me over the last few weeks, is learning that side of the work, how to do that instead of just learning in class the whole time. You get the practical, giving feedback to them.
That's all we've got. Yeah.
Any questions?
So from that, in terms of your feedback, you find that your feedback is how much have you tailored your feedback regarding to giving a feedback to maybe a New Zealand athlete versus a Japanese athlete? What would you say differences would be in terms of that?
It's a lot more concise, a lot more direct, to the point. We had to make it that way to ensure that we minimised what was lost in translation. So a lot of the feedback that we give is quantitative, because everybody understands numbers, and we haven't gone into too much depth in terms of some of the qualitative feedback that we're giving back. But that being said, those that we are working with, there is some exceptional English ability.
In both places, both China and Japan, they've got all this amazing gear. It looks amazing. But what's their level of research and stuff like? Although they've got all this gear, are they researching stuff so much greater than us, or are they similar levels, or what's the story in terms of that?
From what I can understand in our relationship with Teikyo, was that their senior director, I'm not sure what his official title is, he wants to motivate his staff to research and to be research active. They've got a lot of gear. I don't think it's a case of all the gear, no idea. But I do think that they are more than capable. I think it's just they just need to be motivated, and I think we could help them with research ideas. They may have, or we could help them see things that they may not have thought about. And a reason for that could be because most of the research that comes out is in English. So there's for them there needs to be a translation element of it, and finding people to translate that could be difficult for them. So if we can be that intermediary where we do what we can to stay up to date and up to play with what's happening in research currently, and we take that knowledge and those ideas that we have and share them with them in the interests of a healthy partnership and a healthy working relationship. I think that might work for them as well.
I think the other thing here is too is that we have an applied slant on research, and they don't. The researchers there from Teikyo, they don't look like applied people, do they? Have you seen the movie Zootopia? You should, because there's a couple of guys that's lost inside of a very slow moving group. They don't look like they're going to be out there. They don't look like anything like Yako TJ or Mara. They were not active. They were stuff. And what you told me about Beijing is they're also theorists. And the application of research to athletes and different populations for us is where I think our advantage is, and perhaps a little bit of niche that we can carve out by utilising the partnerships we have to apply some of their science and theories into practice.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what we proposed as the next step with BSU to the international people, is let's get them out here and put some of their projects into practice.
Yeah, I think, just to follow what Greg said, after I'd given my lectures, I sat through a couple of presentations by PhD students, and one was on aerial skiing, and even that wasn't very applied in nature. It was more about purely biomechanical outcomes, which is fantastic, but when you ask them, how does this translate onto the snow, they can't answer that question. And that might be just where they're at in their PhD journey, or it might be because there's no interest in that. And then the second presentation I sat through looked at brain signalling, and again you asked the question because he was talking about glucose deprivation in the brain, so really important implication to athletes, potentially like diabetics, even those with mental illness. This is just basic research, was the answer I got back, so didn't see it beyond the lab. And I think that's where we can really step in, help upskill our students or expose them to that, but help them fill in some of the gaps.
Now, our links, I guess, from the future of this, we want to continue to build these partnerships. The motivation, some of it is that in 2019, 2020, the Rugby World Cup and the Summer Olympics are in Tokyo. In 2022, the Winter Olympics are in Beijing. So everything's occurring in Asia, and Asia seems to be the centre of the sports university at the moment. So I think we're well placed, and the more we do there, the more opportunity we can create for ourselves, for us to be able to also our students. So it's an ongoing thing. I think we've got the wheels to move in both these countries, but we really continue to get them to move and continue to get them to roll. Because they're opportunity for us. They're happy to spend money, I believe, to create partnerships with us. We just need to keep fostering these things.
Yeah, I didn't come from an educational background, but I spent a bit of time in China and understand the cultural things, and I would wonder that what you guys could potentially offer them is, because we come from a culture of challenging everything, we're the underdog, we're going to punch above our weight. They come from this very regimented, top-down approach, do what you're told, don't think outside the box, certainly don't step outside the box. But could, it is, I guess, the challenge, can you be part of them making that transition to think more broadly and evaluate it? So yes, it's more applied rather than just theoretical, but don't underestimate the value you come from. Your just total mindset is, Kiwis take it on the fly, we correlate a lot of information and then try to put it into a picture, and whereas they'll be going, no, it's got to drop into a box. So, any of your relationships with them, they'll value up that component that you come from a culture where you think broadly, whereas they won't. They want to, and I'm certain, and that's the way they'll go, but you can be part of that transition for them. But I think Greg was really on the money going, don't overstep that, you need to be invited into that space, don't go say, shit, we know it, just give it to me, we'll solve all your problems. Because you've got to work with these paradigms of hierarchical, you have to totally, and we were talking earlier before this meeting, Greg and I, that we've both been in countries and you think we'll change their culture or change people's alcohol. You just won't. You've got to absolutely believe that you can't move those things, but they are all trying to advance, and we have things that we can offer, but I think our ability is that free thinking, ground up, small, the little guy fighting against the big guy. That's what they'll be looking for. Well, that's truly what I think we represent to them, so you've got to be real.
So, should we wrap it up there? Got any more questions? Or good? Cool. Thanks very much for coming on, guys.
Thank you.